Before we begin, ask yourself one question. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Not what you think you should do, not what feels safe, but what you would actually do if fear of judgment, failure, or being disliked, didn't hold you back. This single question sits at the heart of Lean In. Because the biggest barrier standing between women and leadership today is often not a lack of talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but the invisible limits women place on themselves. Internalizing the Revolution. Sheryl Sandberg begins with a deeply personal moment from her time at Google when she was pregnant with her first child. Struggling with physical discomfort and long walks from distant parking spots, she realized something striking. Google had no reserved parking for pregnant women. When she raised the issue with the founders, they immediately fixed it. The problem was not resistance, it was invisibility. No one had thought about it because no woman in a senior enough position had asked. This moment becomes a metaphor for the entire book. Progress for women does not happen automatically. Even well-intentioned systems fail women when women's voices are absent from leadership. Sandberg admits she herself failed to recognize the problem until it personally affected her, highlighting how deeply normalized women's silence can be. She then zooms out to the larger global picture. While women today have more rights and opportunities than any generation before them, real equality remains distant. Men still overwhelmingly dominate political power, corporate leadership, and decision-making roles worldwide. Despite women earning more college degrees and entering the workforce in record numbers, their presence sharply declines at the top. Sandberg argues that this is not just a societal problem, it is also an internal one. Alongside real external barriers like sexism, discrimination, and lack of institutional support, women also face internal barriers: self-doubt, fear, lowered expectations, and the tendency to pull back just when they should lean in. These internal barriers are rarely discussed, yet they play a critical role in holding women back. The book's core message is not that women must change instead of society, but that change must happen on both fronts simultaneously. By dismantling internal barriers while also challenging external ones, progress becomes possible. Lean In is a call for women to claim ambition, confidence, and leadership, and for men to support them in building a more equal world. Chapter 1: The Leadership Ambition Gap. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Sheryl Sandberg opens this chapter by examining a paradox that sits at the center of modern gender equality. Women today are more educated than ever before. They earn a majority of college and postgraduate degrees, enter the workforce in large numbers, and perform just as well as men across industries. Yet, as careers progress, women steadily disappear from leadership positions. The question is not whether women are capable, but why so many stop aiming for the top. To understand this, Sandberg traces ambition back to childhood. From a young age, boys and girls are socialized differently. Boys are encouraged to be assertive, outspoken, and confident. Girls, on the other hand, are praised for being polite, helpful, and agreeable. Leadership traits that are celebrated in boys are often discouraged in girls. Over time, these messages quietly shape how ambition is expressed or suppressed. As women grow older, ambition becomes increasingly complicated. A driven man is admired. A driven woman is often judged. Ambitious women are more likely to be labeled as aggressive, selfish, or difficult. As a result, many women learn to temper their aspirations, not because they lack desire or talent, but because they fear the social consequences of success. Sandberg reflects on her own life to show how deeply this conditioning runs. Early in her career, she turned down opportunities that would have required travel or risk because she worried about marriage and personal stability. Like many women, she internalized the belief that professional ambition could conflict with having a fulfilling personal life. This mindset leads women to make trade-offs prematurely, limiting themselves long before external constraints appear. Fear is the thread that runs through this chapter. Fear of being disliked, fear of failing, fear of being judged as a bad partner or future parent. These fears influence decisions quietly and persistently. Women often step back before anyone asks them to step aside. Sandberg challenges readers to confront this fear directly. She poses the question that defines the book: what would you do if you weren't afraid? When fear is removed, ambition has space to grow. Leadership, she argues, begins with the courage to imagine more. Chapter 2. Sit at the table. In this chapter, Sandberg shifts focus from ambition to confidence, exploring how women often undervalue themselves even when they are fully qualified. She begins with a telling story from her time hosting a high-level meeting. While male executives confidently took seats at the table, senior women positioned themselves along the walls. No one told them to move aside. They did it themselves. This physical choice reflects a deeper psychological pattern. Women are more likely to doubt their competence and wait for permission before claiming space. Sandberg introduces the concept of imposter syndrome, a phenomenon where capable, accomplished individuals feel undeserving of their success and fear being exposed as frauds. While both men and women experience this, women tend to internalize it more deeply. Research supports this pattern. Studies consistently show that women rate their performance lower than men, even when objective evaluations show equal or superior results. Men are more likely to attribute success to ability and failure to external factors. Women tend to do the opposite, crediting success to luck or help and blaming failure on personal inadequacy. Over time, this difference in self-perception has real consequences. Confidence affects who speaks up in meetings, who applies for promotions, and who is seen as leadership material. When women underestimate themselves, opportunities pass them by, not because they are unqualified, but because they hesitate. Sandberg emphasizes that confidence does not mean arrogance. It means recognizing one's own value and being willing to step forward. Sometimes, confidence comes after action, not before it. Acting confident can help build genuine belief. The central message of this chapter is clear. Women must stop sitting on the sidelines of their own careers. They must claim their place, speak with authority, and take their seat at the table. Chapter 3. Success and Likeability. This chapter explores one of the most frustrating dilemmas women face in the workplace, the tension between being successful and being liked. Sandberg explains that while success generally increases a man's likability, it often has the opposite effect for women. Through research and real-world examples, she shows how identical behavior is interpreted differently based on gender. Assertive men are seen as strong leaders. Assertive women are often labeled as aggressive or unpleasant. Confident men inspire trust. Confident women can trigger discomfort or resentment. This double standard creates a no-win situation. If women soften their behavior to be liked, they may be seen as weak or ineffective. If they assert themselves to be respected, they risk social backlash. Over time, many women learn to self-censor, holding back ideas or ambition to avoid negative reactions. Sandberg makes it clear that this is not an individual failure but a cultural bias. Society still holds outdated expectations about how women should behave. Leadership is unconsciously associated with traditionally masculine traits, while women are expected to prioritize warmth and agreeableness. The solution is not for women to shrink or apologize for their success. Instead, the definition of leadership must expand. When competence and likability are no longer seen as opposites for women, true equality becomes possible. Chapter 4. It's a jungle gym, not a ladder. In this chapter, Sandberg challenges the traditional metaphor of career progression. Careers are often described as ladders, straight, linear paths where each step leads neatly upward. But this model rarely reflects reality, especially for women. Sandberg proposes a different image, the jungle gym. Careers involve lateral moves, unexpected shifts, pauses, and leaps. Progress is rarely straight. The problem is that many women hesitate to move unless they feel completely prepared. Research shows that men are more likely to apply for roles even when they meet only some of the qualifications. Women tend to wait until they meet nearly all of them. This difference in risk tolerance compounds over time, creating gaps in experience and visibility. Sandberg encourages women to pursue opportunities that offer growth, even if the path is unclear. Waiting for the perfect role or perfect timing often means waiting forever. Momentum matters more than certainty. The jungle gym metaphor reframes success as adaptability rather than perfection. Careers are built through learning, risk-taking, and resilience, not by following a rigid plan. Chapter 5. Are you my mentor? Mentorship is often portrayed as essential for success, but Sandberg warns against treating it as a prerequisite. Many women stall their progress, waiting for a mentor to appear, believing that guidance must come before advancement. Sandberg argues that mentorship works best when it develops naturally. Strong mentors are drawn to people who show initiative, curiosity, and commitment. Rather than asking someone to be a mentor, women should seek advice, take on challenges, and build authentic professional relationships. Mentorship is a byproduct of engagement, not a starting point. By focusing on doing excellent work and asking thoughtful questions, guidance emerges organically. Chapter 6: Seek and Speak Your Truth. The final chapter in this section focuses on communication. Women are often taught to avoid conflict, soften criticism, and prioritize harmony. While these traits can be valuable, they can also lead to silence in situations that demand honesty. Sandberg emphasizes that effective leadership requires direct and authentic communication. Avoiding difficult conversations does not preserve relationships, it weakens them. Speaking the truth, respectfully and clearly, builds trust and credibility. Women are encouraged to share their ambitions, voice concerns, and give and receive feedback openly. Authenticity is not a liability, it is a strength. By seeking and speaking their truth, women align their actions with their values. This alignment, Sandberg argues, is essential for lasting impact and leadership growth. Chapter 7: Don't Leave Before You Leave. In this chapter, Sheryl Sandberg addresses a subtle but powerful pattern that holds many women back long before family responsibilities actually arise. She observes that women often begin pulling back from their careers years in advance, anticipating future demands of marriage, pregnancy, or motherhood. This retreat is rarely conscious or dramatic. Instead, it happens quietly by declining challenging assignments, avoiding promotions, or lowering expectations. Sandberg explains that this behavior is driven by uncertainty and fear. Because women are repeatedly told that it is impossible to succeed at work and family simultaneously, they begin preparing for a future conflict that may not even materialize. Rather than making decisions when circumstances actually change, they make them far too early. This premature retreat has serious consequences. When women step back early, they lose momentum, visibility, and opportunities for advancement. Then, when family responsibilities do arrive, they have fewer options, less flexibility, and less power to shape their work lives. Sandberg's advice is direct. Stay fully engaged for as long as possible. Make career decisions when they are necessary, not based on hypothetical futures. Leaning in early creates leverage later. The more invested and established a woman is in her career, the more control she has when life inevitably becomes complex. The chapter reinforces a central idea of the book. Options expand when women remain ambitious, not when they withdraw in anticipation of difficulty. Chapter 8: Make Your Partner a Real Partner. Here, Sandberg turns attention to the home, arguing that workplace equality is impossible without equality in personal relationships. She emphasizes that even as women have entered the workforce in large numbers, expectations at home have not shifted at the same pace. Women still do the majority of housework and childcare, even when both partners work full-time. This imbalance creates a hidden but powerful barrier to career advancement. When women shoulder most domestic responsibilities, they have less time, energy, and flexibility to pursue demanding roles. Over time, this leads to stalled careers, resentment, and burnout. Sandberg stresses that true partnership means shared responsibility, not occasional help. Both partners must see household and childcare duties as equally important and equally theirs. This requires honest conversations, renegotiation of roles, and a willingness to challenge traditional gender norms. She also highlights how cultural expectations reinforce inequality. Men are often praised for minimal involvement at home, while women are judged harshly for prioritizing work. Breaking this cycle requires intentional choices within relationships. The chapter's message is clear: women cannot lean in at work if they are forced to lean back at home. Equality in leadership begins with equality in partnership. Chapter 9: The Myth of Doing It All. This chapter dismantles the unrealistic ideal that women must excel flawlessly in every role: career, parenting, partnership, and personal life. Sandberg argues that the pressure to do it all is both impossible and harmful. She explains that perfectionism traps women in constant guilt. No matter what choice they make, they feel they are failing somewhere else. This internal pressure leads to exhaustion and dissatisfaction, not fulfillment. Sandberg reframes the concept of balance. Life is not a perfectly calibrated scale, it is a series of shifting priorities. Some moments require more focus on work, others on family, and some on rest or personal growth. Accepting this fluidity is essential. Letting go of unrealistic standards allows women to make choices based on values rather than guilt. Success, Sandberg argues, does not require perfection. It requires intention and self-compassion. Chapter 10. Let's start talking about it. Silence, Sandberg argues, is one of the greatest enablers of inequality. Gender bias, discrimination, and unequal expectations persist because they are often unspoken. When issues remain hidden, they cannot be addressed. This chapter calls for open, honest conversations about gender at work and at home. Sandberg encourages women and men to discuss bias, share experiences, and challenge assumptions. These conversations can be uncomfortable, but they are necessary for progress. She also emphasizes the importance of data and awareness. When organizations track representation, pay gaps, and promotion patterns, inequality becomes harder to ignore and easier to confront. By starting conversations rather than avoiding them, individuals and institutions create space for change. Talking openly is not about assigning blame, it is about building understanding and accountability. Chapter 11. Working Together Toward Equality. In the final chapter, Sandberg broadens the focus from individual action to collective responsibility. Gender equality, she argues, is not a women's issue, it is a societal one. Men play a critical role as allies, partners, and leaders. When men support women's ambition, share responsibilities at home, and challenge bias, progress accelerates. Likewise, institutions must evolve, implementing policies that support flexibility, fairness, and inclusion. Sandberg emphasizes that change happens incrementally. Each woman who leans in, each man who steps up at home, and each organization that addresses bias contributes to a larger shift. The chapter closes with a reminder that equality benefits everyone. When talent is fully utilized, workplaces become stronger, families become healthier, and societies become more just. Progress requires collaboration, persistence, and the courage to keep leaning in. Lean in is not about telling women to work harder or blame themselves. It is about reclaiming ambition, dismantling fear, and stepping fully into potential. Progress happens when women stop asking for permission and start taking their place. The question remains, what would you do if you weren't afraid?